What I found was people were almost discussing what they were doing more than the result. And that's what I call fee justification. There's no point doing stuff if there's no reason for it. And you might be doing a good job, but if you can't show that you're doing a good job, then that also can create a gap between you and your client. Sometimes simple isn't perfect. So you just have a little bit of wiggle and you work on the mean, the average. Remember that attribution is going to be rubbish. The thing that's going to change the most in the next 12 months is paid ads. If you know paid ads in any platform, try the new ones that are coming out. So I guess in a nutshell, it's kind of like you don't have to just pigeonhole yourself as the number one, the big screaming business and all that kind of stuff. The results change so fast that you might be there one day, but you're not going to be there tomorrow. So you need to keep that flow and that information happening, keep refreshing it.
You started 226 with one belief, David, and that is marketing should be measurable. Now, that sounds obvious, but why isn't that the default in the industry?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. By the way, thanks for having me on.
Cheers.
In my experience working in big agencies, I worked at quite a large agency for 10 years. I was general manager there for the last 5 of those 10 years. And what I found was people were almost discussing what they were doing more than the result. And that's what I call fee justification. You know, you're sitting there going, I built links, I wrote a blog, I did your report, but they're not discussing what's in the report and why they did it. And even just recently, I audited an SEO campaign that was beautiful, like SEO 101 perfection. They hit every keyword, every page I would have done, but this company got sacked and the company asked me to audit it. And I was like, what was wrong? And they had no idea why all these pages had been done. You know, so that's my mantra, is that there's no point doing stuff if there's no reason for it. And you might be doing a good job, but if you can't show that you're doing a good job, then that also can create a gap between you and your client.
Yeah. You can't show that you're doing a good job. I like that term, fee justification, because you're exactly right. It's very easy to look busy, and even with like output is solved. We don't have a problem creating things, creating assets, artifacts, as Anthropic calls them, and presenting them. But the weight of what's presented in those artifacts is what actually matters. How do you, as you position 226 as a marketing consultancy plus a partner, it's kind of like the first step, 2, 3 steps that you do with a new client to set the tone?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because it's easy when you're speaking to a new lead to start being guided by the lead. You know, a lot of salespeople will say, let the lead sell themselves to you. And I used to live by that quite a lot. I think it was easier to get sales over the line when you sort of got guided by the client and then they almost closed themselves. If you've ever been in those conversations. But what I found was that you end up peddling because sometimes the service isn't quite what you do. So you've sort of fit a service around what they wanted to buy off you. So what I like to do is just sort of ask the client what they like, what they didn't like about their previous experience. Ask them how much they know. Tell me what you know about SEO. Tell me what you know about Google Ads. And then try and show them how I can help them in that situation. So you're almost along the same path, but the client is telling me I'm an expert at Google Ads, but I don't know much about SEO, as an example. So I can go, look, that's cool. So what we'll do with Google Ads is you and I will work together and I'll guide you through some expert advice there. And through SEO, we'll do all the one-on-ones and I'll explain that to you so that you understand what I'm doing. I guess that's the biggest thing, is when I start working with a client, it's always the same services that I offer, but I don't adapt it to what the client wants, but I fit in with what their expertise and expectations are.
Okay. I think what I heard is that you're not primarily, but education to the client is just as important as execution.
Yeah. So at some point you and I were emailing and there was a discussion around client retention. And I don't like jumping ahead too much, but the client retention piece is quite often mixed up in agency land because we're trying to sell them the next service or sell them something new, or you could use a landing page or something like that. But client retention is so much better if you mean something to the client and you're working as a team. So what I like to do is get the client involved in the process and involved in what we're doing so that they understand what's happening, you know? Because sometimes if you're building links, it can just seem like this smokes and mirrors thing off in the distance, and I don't know why they're doing it. So I like to sit on a call and I show them their authority score and the authority score of the website that we're using to link with, and explain that that one is bigger than yours, so that's why we're doing it, you know, that kind of thing.
We got to hang out with the cool kids. We want your website to be seen, right? That's what I always think of it. It's like SEO is like high school drama. You always want to be hanging out with the cool kids. You know, you don't want to be causing trouble and hanging out with those guys who are smoking cigarettes behind the outback during the school day.
Well, they're like the short-term win guys, aren't they? You know, you feel cool for a few minutes.
Exactly. Yes. But you know what? You're gonna mess up your future. Don't do it.
Hey, don't do it. How funny.
Yes, exactly. You've been in marketing and worked at an agency for a decade, but almost 2 decades in marketing. However, marketing wasn't like your how do I say that? Marketing wasn't your expertise when you first started your career. You kind of grew up in hospitality, or that's kind of where you started, right?
Yeah, so it's a funny story of ego and failed attempts. Okay, so basically, I thought I was going to get into TV advertising. So when I finished school, that was my goal. I went to, you guys would call it college, but university. And if you might have the grades in Australia, but you also do, for the very competitive courses, you do an interview. And I guess I come from sort of a private school where they sort of help you along the way a lot to try and get you through school. And because I was also, I'm not going to say an athlete because I wasn't that good, but I was good enough to be in the school team that represented the school. So when you're in the sports team, they kind of help you a little bit more because they know you've got a very busy schedule of school and sports. So when I went to this interview for the advertising to get into college, I just thought I was going to get in. And I bombed the interview and I didn't get into my course, right? And I obviously had no backup. So you're talking an 18-year-old kid. So I then, went on tried to get these internships, and I don't know how I thought I would get one of those without actually going to college. But anyway, all this stuff was just falling a little bit short. So I ended up doing like a short course in marketing, business advertising, and during that I actually got into hospitality, and I got a really interesting job where I was working nights, but I was working at a huge casino, and I was doing like big events where there were lots of famous athletes and movie stars, and I think even Michael Cage walked into one of my bars and I was working. It was kind of cool. And then there's this sport called cricket. Now, you guys who've worked with companies in India and stuff, you would know about cricket, but your average American probably doesn't know that too much about it. I got an opportunity to go and play for a team in England from Australia. Cool. So I went over to England and I was trying to make it as a semi-pro cricketer. And then basically I worked out that wasn't going to be happening. So I basically got this job for this company in central London who wanted me to be a marketing manager, but also like run all their catering business. I think their catering business was turning over something like £20,000 a year or something, They were a pub, but very small. And I looked at the street and it had Deloitte and Baker McKenzie and all these other massive businesses across the road. And I said, well, if you do catering, every one of those little buildings huge buildings has a little team in it that needs sandwiches. So I'm just going to stand on the street and hand out sandwiches and see what happens. And the guy was like, all right, off you go. You do that. And if you can sell some, you can have the job. So then this group of Aussies walked past, Australians, and I said, what are you guys doing? You want to come in the pub? So the pub was empty. 30 people walked in. They're all eating sandwiches. Then these guys are walking past going, what's happening? Suddenly this little pub is full of people eating and not drinking. So I worked with these guys and turned it into like a £200,000 a year business, and it was growing and growing and growing. And this was during a huge market depression in like 2010, I think, or whenever that was, 2008. And yeah, sorry to jump around, but then Google rang me. So I'm sitting at my desk and I get a call from Google, and the guy's like, "Oh, I'm from Google." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're from Google." He goes, "And what I want you to do is put your business in this listing, and then I'll guide you over the call." I pressed enter. I said, "Thanks for the call." Did it all. It looked beautiful. This was the early days of Google My Business or Google Business, right? So then I'm fielding calls from like Scotland, you know, which is a long way away. It's a different country. And I'm going, "What's going on here?" And he goes, "What's your problem? You're number one on Google for catering, and I need catering." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And then I looked at it, and yes, across the whole UK, we were number one for just the word catering.
Oh my gosh.
And so I actually had to like undo the work, right?
It was too
Because yeah, I couldn't fill these orders. So then I found out what I was doing was SEO. And I said to my boss, "Look, yeah, handing out stuff on the street is cool, but we need to do this Google thing, right? Because that's working." And then when I returned to Australia, I found out, there were heaps of companies that needed people that were SEO experts. And this time when I went for interviews, I actually, had some rumble behind me, and I got a job. So so I know it was a long-winded story, but that's how it all evolved.
Yeah. And now when Google calls you, it's totally expected, because you're like,
"Yes,
I just got your Google Ads certification," or whatever is next, right?
Or they're going, "Oh, nice Google Ads campaign. Can I help you and get you to spend more money?" "Yeah, no problem, Google."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It tends to be how it is, right? But in 2026, your stance, you said that marketing in 2026 is not about being louder, it's about being smarter. What does a business look like that is still trying to be the former? What does a business look like that's still trying to be louder in 2026? What are the symptoms of that?
Pardon me. So basically, what I see a lot of is people that are just going after this big statement, and they're churning it out all the time, over and over again. So they might be going, "We are the best people for blankets, wool blankets," and then they post another article about wool blankets, and then they post another one, and they're bidding for the number one keyword in wool blankets, doing all their SEO for wool blankets. They're doing all this kind of stuff, and they're so heavily just shouting down one barrel. And basically, there's all these people that are going out there and going, "Well, how do I choose one? Why do I want one? What alternatives are there? Why would I choose merino sheep wool as opposed to alpaca wool?" And so there's all this layer that your clients can sit in, which helps guide a person to a sale, rather than redoing the same work that you've done for ages. On the agency side, a lot of people think that they have to be the best agency and they have to be the number one agency, and we've got all these skills and tools and people. How many clients are there in the world? How many clients? So when I left my agency, everyone was like, "Oh, what are you going to do?" But I just basically went, "Well, if I Google any service, there's 30, 40, 50 businesses all going for that keyword. So if I can work with one of them and one of them and one of them and one of them in each search, well, I'll build my agency. I don't need to go and steal other clients and do that." There's so many businesses that want help,
Yeah.
So I guess in a nutshell, it's kind of like you don't have to just pigeonhole yourself as the number one, the big screaming business and all that kind of stuff. There's all this business that you can pick up and turn into big businesses, in that mid to low tier, or in that research phase and all this kind of stuff. That's sort of what I'm getting at by that.
Hey, we hope you're enjoying the coffee and the conversation so far. This show is powered by Digital Web Solutions, and if you've ever wondered how the biggest brands actually build authority, this is it. DWS has a massive network of over 250,000 publishers, real sites that help you rank on Google and more importantly, stay visible in AI search. It's the heavy lifting most teams just can't do on their own. As a thank you for listening, they're offering an exclusive free strategy call just for our eCoffee listeners. It's a great way to map out your authority plan for 2026. Just click the link below to book yours and see how they can help scale your brand. All right, now let's get back to the show. Yeah, I mean, what I hear is there's a lack of segmentation, personalization, and nuance. And with LLMs, the entity and topic clusters are kind of the new keywords. And from my understanding, is we're attacking the same, let's say, topic or entity from multiple different angles. If it's merino wool, how does it feel like this? How does it feel in terms of sleeping? How does it feel in terms of traveling? What's the weight of the material? How, like, where's it from? The difference is so many different angles to talk about the same thing. And those are all entry points into the customer journey. And I think what you're saying is like, essentially, the companies who are trying to be louder are just meeting the customer at one point in their customer journey, and they're not recognizing like, yeah, we still have the old top, middle, and bottom of funnel, but now it's more complex than that. There's more nuance. I'm curious if you're seeing what's your take on like the new AI SEO or AEO as we call it, answer engine optimization?
So the first thing is, remember all those conversations with clients about SEO takes 3 months? Man, you type in a new client and you put on all these Q&As on their website, you're going to see them in the first page of Google in like the next day. Okay. So like, I think, you know how agencies always have bad SEO or crap websites?
Yep. Oh yeah.
I was that, okay, until January. And I basically spent all this time rewriting my website, launched it, and I put all the Q&A data and put schema and everything. And I was the #1 result in Q&As for like SEO agency consultants and all this kind of stuff the next day. And then I looked at my website and I had accidentally loaded the same answer to every Q&A. So I was literally, I had done it wrong. Okay. But 2 or 3 days later, I wasn't there anymore. Right. So,
yeah.
in fact, after I fixed it, I wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
So my mantra now is spam. No, it's not.
Yeah,
but,
right.
So
Black hat, everything.
So basically, it happens faster now. Okay. But there's going to be less traffic because people are looking at the AI overviews and they're not always clicking through to websites. So the one thing that I would recommend, and I know you've got a lot of agencies that listen to this podcast, the one thing I would recommend is clean up your business back end. So if I see someone in AI overview or if I see someone in an ad, my next search might be a branded search. So fix up the Google business listing, fix up all your metadata and your page titles for your own business searches. Make sure as many of your pages and social media pages rank in Google search. And you can do that for yourself and you can do that for your clients as well. You know, and there's a huge piece of SEO that people always forget, which is what are you doing to help the actual business's brand search? And the reason is because most people are running ads and they don't realize that if you're running Performance Max, you're probably running on the client's brand name anyway. So you don't need to worry about the SEO for their brand. But if you're like me and you always exclude the brand name at your own detriment sometimes, you need to fix up that pathway for how the person finds that company next. The other thing I would say with AI overview that I've learned in a very short space of time is keep updating those FAQs and keep writing new articles and linking to each other, because the results change so fast that you might be there one day, but you're not going to be there tomorrow. So you need to keep that flow and that information happening, you know? Keep refreshing it.
Yes, like LLMs are citing recent content. They're, they have preferences. I'm reading a book right now. It's called The Machine Layer. And what I'm getting from it, among a ton of other great insights as to how this works, is the first chapter, the first 2 pages are LLMs don't read how you read. They read differently. They look at tokens. They look at, like you said, question and answer, FAQs. They're lazy, and we've heard laziness be, an attribute of LLMs for how dang smart they are. But that's what I'm hearing is they also like fresh content. They don't want to like dig, way back, but they'll pull up a 2016 Reddit thread for an answer that is
Yeah.
real as opposed to like a 2022 blog article that's like poorly written, right?
Yep.
They would much rather go for something that's right, easy to read, relevant. But I'm curious, you mentioned PMax, you mentioned optimizing for branded SEO search. Tell me about attribution. Attribution is all over the place in 2026. Like, we can't pick up on signals. What are you looking at as like a source of truth? What KPIs still matter to you? And yeah, what are your pillars?
Heavy question, my man. All right. So it came very hard for agencies when there was this beautiful little period in my career, and a lot of guys are going to glaze over and think of these beautiful days, right? There was Facebook or Meta ad. They weren't called Meta at that point, but it would have been about 2019, 2020. Facebook ads were dominating. A lot of people were hiding the fact that they had 30-day attribution. Google had smart shopping, and average ROAS was, if you were doing under a 10, you were not performing. Like, it was 10 to 15 was average. Okay. In all industries, there were people ripping in 30, 40, 50 ROAS. It was crazy, right? It was working so well. And you were running those two things together. It was just magic. But think about those numbers and compare them to today, where Performance Max is like a 3 or a 4 or a 5, unless you're really grinding it. So those numbers, realistically, were they right, or were they just attributing to each other and swapping data? We can pull that apart for hours, which we don't have that time.
Yeah.
So attribution has always been a problem. Okay, but it's now become really hard because guys in our industry are sending out reports and they don't look good. Okay, because people aren't, making money directly from the ads. Okay, so the first thing is, there are 3 places people shop. One is through an ad, directly click on it, purchase. Very rare now. Okay, then there's people that click on the ad, go back through your website and shop online. Then there's people, I've seen a massive lift in my clients that have shops and factories that you can go to purchase. So we're losing those people that are searching online, then clicking on the brand, then going in the shop and buy. Okay, because now that there was a huge shift after the COVID lockdowns in Australia. I'm sure you guys had them in the US as well, where people just stayed online for a good 2 years after that. But the last 2 or 3 years, people have been in the shops buying. Okay. So my advice is that when you're doing attribution, you're looking at a lot of these different platforms. They all report differently. You basically throw all that out the window. You say to the client, look, these are the things I'm doing to send people here to buy. And you basically go, this is what you're spending online. This is what you're spending on SEO. And here is your end sales result. Okay. And then I will go through with the client how many of those sales came from existing versus new. And I basically just, with a grain of 20%, say, look, all that new stuff, we can attribute that to your market. All right. Yeah. So it's hard because it's not a tool, it's not analytics, it's not fair, to us. But that's where I sit. I basically look at all their sales and I take out the existing customers and I talk to them about that group there.
Yeah. I think that can be considered as marketing efficiency ratio is what I've heard it called, MER. Yeah. I've had different opinions on what that, we'll call it like a statistical deviation from the mean. What that is it 20%? Is it 10%? There has to be, you're right, some give, because some people will organically, word of mouth or whatever. I mean, is it going to come down to like, even just asking on a purchase, like, where did you hear about us last? I mean, is that what it comes down to these days?
It always does, yeah. But as we find as well with marketing, I've tried those meta ads where it's got that pre-qualification, register your text message. It blew my cost per conversion out by about $100 per conversion, on a campaign that was going amazing, Here I was like, oh, client, I'll give you better quality. So unfortunately, we're dealing with humans, and humans hate doing stuff. right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's too hard to send this guy a lead. I'm not going to do it. So I like to deal in this imperfect. And this all started because I was sitting in this marketing meeting and I was so stressed because I was like, oh, I'm not really doing well for this client. I feel like, a lot of this stuff isn't landing. It's not working. And the guy's like, we are having the best month we've ever had. Our sales are killing it. You're doing amazing. And he's bigging me up. And I was going like, what? Why? How? What's going on? And he goes, well, this is what I attribute to my work because I can tell where these customers came from. And he said, all these guys, they're new. I don't know where they came from. They're not from my network. I'm just giving that to you. You're the digital guy. You got it. And I was like, oh, hang on. Well, chill out. But keep going, but chill out. But he goes, look, mate, it's imperfect. And me as a marketing manager, I'm busy and I don't want to be cutting all this up. And he goes, we're spending on new business marketing. We're not on TV. We're not on billboards. We're not doing any of that stuff. We're not got salespeople out on the road anymore. We don't do that. So I just have to attribute the new to you. That's it. And I was like, okay. And he goes, that's the simplest way I can write a report. And quite often in our industry, we forget that we're writing a report for someone, but they're writing a report for someone else, and they're writing a report for someone else, and they're writing a report for someone else. And when you work for big companies, they're then putting together an annual review for stockholders. So we need to make stuff simple so that, and sometimes simple isn't perfect, but, like you said, there's got to be this little grain of salt that you can take in or out. There's going to be existing customers that bought because of my ad. There's going to be new customers that bought because one of those existing customers referred them in. So you just have a little bit of wiggle and you work on the mean, the average.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is imperfect. And I'm sure in the future, maybe not so far in the future, Google or Meta or someone will have a solution where they will sell it to you. Hey, perfectly attribute everything, every sale, right? But it's an additional charge for your agency every month.
Yeah. Well, bring it on, guys, because I was at a conference in, I think 2019, something like that. And Google did a presentation about how they were able to track in-store purchases. But that was a long time ago, and I haven't seen that really progress. I'm sure it will happen one day. I'm sure.
Maybe it's not as important. Maybe more people will just take the simplicity, or all the AI systems will be able to, who knows, like pull. Yeah, who knows what's going to happen with AI? I mean, like you and I were talking before recording that the exponential rate of growth, we were literally talking about technologies that came out today, and we were mentioning two different ones that were hours apart from each other that are going to like revolutionize the way that marketers and agencies operate for the next however long, these platforms exist. Tell me a little bit about this, David. AI tools are doing a version of what agencies and what marketers are doing for a fraction of the cost. And I guess the DIY, like the do it yourself, like that approach is real now. Yes, there's learning curves to tools, but it's getting better. Part of their value is not just the output, it's like how easy can we make it to use our tool as part of the value proposition of the tool. So what's your honest answer to a client who asks whether they could just do this themselves using AI without hiring you?
Super scary.
Yeah.
But I actually really enjoy this conversation, so I'm really glad you asked that question. And I think my son, he calls it glazing, but I just want to tell you that you're asking some really good questions. Like,
nice.
I appreciate it.
What is the term, glazing?
Yeah, he says every time I say something nice to my wife, he goes, "You're glazing, Dave. You're glazing." I don't know what that means, but anyway, I think it's giving someone praise. So maybe I'll ask AI to decipher for me, right? So basically, there's two places that the AI is sitting for me in my daily use. Okay, so I started getting campaigns that I needed to write a lot of ad copy, like 20, 30 different ads, huge budgets, and it is very hard to go in and manually write every single ad campaign. So basically, I started putting in the URL and the copy from the website into Gemini, and I would say, write me 8 headlines, 5 descriptions, and 5 long headlines for a Performance Max ad for this page targeting these keywords. And the first few times that I used it, it was knocking the lights out. I hit all the quality scores in Google Ads. All my ads were excellent, blah, blah, blah. But when I went to write the next group of ads, all my ad copy was exactly the same as the first lot.
Oh, no.
You know, so then I was like, change the voice or whatever. It was still pretty similar, okay? Because I'm using data that I've already used, okay? So then I tried putting in other their competitor websites to write the same ad, and it was amazing. But it sounded too much like the competitor, you know, so I had to change the words. So what I found with that was AI tool was helping me because I was generating stuff that I couldn't do manually fast. But after a while, it hit its peak because everything started just being the same, and I then had to use my brain again, you know? It was hard. It was hard, but I had to. Anyway, so I found that amazing.
Yeah.
The second thing was that in the SEO world, I got this crazy project. I had to do 3,500 pages or something. I did all the page titles, all the meta descriptions using the same or similar prompt. I said, this is the page, this is the copy for this page, write me a page title and blah, blah, blah. And man, honestly, I did those 3,500 pages in about 25 minutes. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I had to edit a few, but you know, it was pretty good, right? So
that's wild.
So for that kind of stuff, I did start using it a bit more to cut down time on big projects. And there's this world of AI bidding on Google, which you sort of went into a little bit. So they've launched their AI search ads. They've got AI in Performance Max already, but it's not really talked about as AI. That was amazing. I launched some Performance AI ads and started getting ridiculously good results in the first 2 weeks. But then I saw other parts of my campaign start to fluctuate. And I asked my Google rep, are they competing against each other? And he said, I can confirm they are. So I was like, well, why am I running them at the same time? You know, I'm just obliterating myself, you know? So that was a bit hard. So you need to work out where your search ads and your Performance Max sit. Then there's AI for writing copy and doing, you know, manual work for websites, you know, writing full articles, etc. So obviously I'm not going to do this for a client because, you know, they're paying me for a proper service, etc. And I'm worried that they're going to get banned off Google or whatever it might be, right? So I set up a side project. My side project was selling vintage heavy metal t-shirts. Okay?
Okay.
Sick. Yeah, real cool.
Nice.
Probably a very niche audience. Anyway, with AI tools, writing blogs for me and doing my social media for me, I have racked up 450 to 500,000 views and engagements on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts a month.
Whoa.
Collectively, actually, if you added all the channels together, that's probably getting close to 800,000 engagements a month, right?
Whoa.
And why that's big for me is because I was getting about 20 before that. So it's like, it's a big increase, right? I rank #1 in Australia for heavy metal t-shirts online, heavy metal t-shirts Australia, blah, blah, blah. So something works in there. I haven't spent too much time combing through it and working out what, how, and where. I've just sort of set up tools and I've put my intelligence into them, and it seems to be working, right? There's not too many sales coming through, but I think it's because I don't really have stock that people want, right? But I did that as a side project. So my next iteration of that is learning what parts of it to keep and to use for clients, because it's obvious that if it works to that degree, that it's going to work for people. The only thing that's kind of a little bit nervous about is there are tools that can tell you how much of your content was written by AI, and I ran it through the checks, and you know, like 98% of my website was written by AI, and I'm starting to like freak out a bit that at some point this stuff is just going to get wiped out, you know. And the reason is because I was part of that early SEO boom where we used to just do links, write keywords into the website, and you'd rank #1 for that keyword.
Boom.
And then it was a Panda or something that came out and just completely Penguin just completely wiped everyone off the face of the earth. So I am very scared that that could happen one day. And then we've also got this exciting iteration that in about August, there's going to be ads in the chat tools. So so we're going to be able to basically join in the conversation with an ad anyway. So I think that, you spoke to me about excitement about our industry, and I can tell that you're very passionate and I'm very passionate, and it's kind of like you can't blink because it changes all the time, and it's got that competitive sporting, learning something new, so now I'm in my 40s and I'm still learning new stuff, I'm still learning new words from my kids, and I'm learning new stuff from Google, and so it's very hard to get bored, I speak to friends that have been tradesmen for 20, 30 years building houses, and it doesn't matter what house you work in, they just get a bit like repetitive. I'm like, oh, this is new, and that's new, and so I think we're quite lucky.
And you know what? I'm so glad you said that, because yes, you have picked up on my enthusiasm.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to hide that, as it is for you when you're really passionate and excited about things and about the competitive nature of it. What I'm foreseeing is those who aren't as passionate about this are already feeling like they're behind, but in 6 to 12 months, they're going to be like, oh man, there's no catching up. I think the people who are on the cutting edge, they're signed up to the newsletters, watching the videos, having the conversations, they're in their mastermind groups, they're testing with heavy metal t-shirts in Australia. Like those type of people, I think are just going to be oodles and boodles ahead of everyone else. And it's not even going to be a conversation next year. So that's
good, man.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend people just try it, they just try the new stuff, I think the first 100 comments that I got on the social media pages was just people posting an AI GIF, just going, this is AI. I'm like, all right, buddy. Did I say it wasn't AI? Did I say no, this is not AI? No, I didn't. But I just kind of, instead of getting all pent up about it, I just get rid of those, just delete them and move on.
Onward and onward.
Just try it, man.
As we wrap up the conversation here, David, I'm curious if there's one channel or one avenue or one strategy or tactic or even like person that you're following that you're like, I'm just going to go all in on this for the next 12 months. Like if you were to just go all in, what's the tent pole?
Right. So the thing that's going to change the most in the next 12 months is paid ads. A lot of people sit within one stream. So usually you're a Google Ads agency or a Meta Ads agency or whatever. You'll see that, so I think that we've spoken about multi-channels and reaching clients over different areas. If you know paid ads in any platform, try the new ones that are coming out. I think ChatGPT is going to launch ads. I think Reddit's already launched theirs. Try them, give them a go, and try and reach your customers on different channels, okay? Remember that attribution is going to be rubbish, right? It's going to be bad. Try and reach customers on new channels with new paid ads. The people that I've gone back to my core with people that I like to listen to. So I'm back on Search Engine Journal. I'm back on Moz. I'm back on SEO Roundtable. And I think it's because they've actually got lots of different people communicating on there now. There's like, the whiteboards used to be the same people every week, but now I've noticed, I might be wrong, but I've noticed some new people popping up and some interesting perspectives. And also, you can't go past your mate Neil Patel, can you? He seems to, if for anything else, they're good videos. Like, So I definitely recommend that.
Yes.
But
Neil just has a ton of data at NP Digital, and that's why I think he's been a trusted source forever. But even more so is just like he knows how to aggregate, decipher, and present data in a compelling way, and then put a narrative behind it that makes it easy to understand. So that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So as we wrap up here, David, where can we find more about you, about 226, and where you're appearing online?
Yeah, so our website is digital.com.au, and it's all spelled out, TWOSIX Digital. And from there, if you scroll right to the bottom of the page, there's links to all our social media. I'm trying to be a really good guy and post more videos, but it's sometimes really confronting and time consuming to do that. And I don't have, the skills of Mr. Patel and yourself, so I'd call myself a battler in that place.
Nice.
But definitely during the conversation, I really realized that even though most of my content is for clients, I've got more industry people being clients on those channels anyway. I've been in the game for a long time, so I'm happy to answer questions or build new connections, or if you've got a service that you think might be aligned, get in touch. I'm open to exploring stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not closed off,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Definitely.
Collaboration is the new currency. I heard from a wise man one time. David,
Yeah.
until the next time we chat, whatever day of the week it's going to be, whether that's a Friday for me and a Saturday for you, I'm sure
Yep.
there's going to be a new thing to talk about that literally released hours ago. So I look forward to that day. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. You've given me a really good time. I appreciate it.
Same. Cheers.
So.